The gaming industry has exploded in popularity over the last few decades, captivating players with immersive experiences, stunning graphics, and intricate storytelling. While video games provide a form of entertainment and even learning opportunities, a darker truth lurks behind the surface. Many of these games promote violence in many ways, affecting younger audiences. Violent video games do not simply depict aggression. They actively engage players in violent scenarios, rewarding disruptive behaviors and reinforcing harmful patterns that extend beyond the virtual world. Research shows that long-term exposure to violent content can alter the real world violence and even reduce impulse control. The debate over whether video games strengthen and argue, or whether video games contribute to real-world violence or new, but evidence continues to accumulate, strengthening the arguments that these video games are indeed shaping behavioral tendencies in certain ways. When you think of video games promoting violence, titles like Call of Duty or other war-involved games may come to mind. But what if I told you even games like Animal Crossing or sports games like 2K and Madden could contribute to aggressive behaviors, not through directive violence, but through addiction. Video game addiction can lead to frustration, impulsivity, and even anger when players feel compelled to keep playing. Chasing rewards or contain violent imagery. The addictive nature of video games itself can fuel emotional tendencies, create emotional or moments of agitation when interrupted or challenged. In this way, the impact of video games and behavior beyond the themes they present, shaping habits and reactions in ways that may not be positive. Which brings me to this. If video games conduct players to see aggression as entertainment, can we really dismiss their impact? The effects may be subtle at first, but over time they become ingrained in the player's mind, influence their interactions, responses, and emotional development. It is time to acknowledge the never-ending link between video games and behavioral challenges.
Video games don't promote violence. When you hear video games, you hear fun, and they promote creativity and help embrace the difficulty learners and give them the same advantage like others have. This statement is backed up with the iBurdola.com. They state many parents distrust video consoles and don't want them in the house because they are afraid that they will damage their children's performance at school. However, the benefits of video games include improved powers of concentration, creativity, memory, languages, and teamwork. And that's from the iBurdola.com. They also state Lara Croftman, not now is, but her legendary adventures on PlayStation have done more for archaeology than many a textbook. As well as the start of the Tomb Raider saga, there are endless other video game characters who surprisingly enough awaken early vocation and teach history, geography, and mathematics to millions of school children and adults around the world. Who said that video consoles don't stimulate the intellect? As you see from these two keen statements and stories are equally level to my short discussion, video games give creativity, expression to art, and gateway for troubled kids. Video games are often dismissed as unsophisticated or the domain of couch potatoes. But did you know that many common elements of these stimulated worlds can provide tangible benefits in real life? Benefits of video games for both children and adults include healthy brain stimulation, development of problem-solving skills, stress relief. Have shown that some video games can boost mood and make for better heart rhythms, a sign that they may also help relieve stress. The correlation, not casually, between video games and stress has been reflected in numerous unrelated studies, which is why video games have been used in therapy for over a decade.
Video games have become a dominant form of entertainment, captivating players with immersive experiences and intricate storytelling. However, beneath the surface of this digital revolution lies a troubling reality. Many video games actively promote violence. Through repeated exposure, players may become desensitized to the violent content, imitate aggression behaviors, or develop heightened aggression thoughts and emotions. These effects are not merely theoretical. They are supported by extensive research and highlights the concerning the impact of video games. First, one of the most alarming consequences of violent video games is the censored violence. Studies have shown that repeated exposure to violent content reduces emotional responses to real-world violence, making individuals less sensitized to the suffering of others. Research conducted in the University of Michigan found that players who frequently engage with violent video games, or just violent games, inhibit diminished reactions to violent imagery, inducing a reduced ability to empathize with victims or other people. This emotional numbing can have serious societal impacts, as individuals who are sensitive to violence may be less likely to intervene with real-life solutions or recognize that the severity of the aggressive acts. Video games do not merely depict aggression, they actively encourage players to engage in violent acts, reforming harmful behavior patterns. The concept of behavioral imitation, rooted in the social learning theory, suggests that individuals learn and replicate behaviors observed in their environment. Studies have demonstrated that players exposed to violent video game scenarios are more likely to imitate aggression in the real life. This phenomenon is particularly concerning for younger audiences who are still developing and understanding the acceptable social behavior. By rewarding violent actions within the game, players may internalize aggression as a way of conflict resolution, leading to increased hostility and interpersonal interactions. Beyond behavioral imitation, video games have been linked to heightened aggression thoughts and emotions. Research from the American Psychological Association indicates that prolonged exposure to violent gaming content correlates with increased aggression and reduced empathy and diminished impulse control. A real-life example of this is a video of a dad taking his son's gaming, what is like an Xbox, and smashing it on the ground and rolling over it with the car and all that. You may expect him to go crazy or whatever, like he's mad obviously, but he throws a tantrum and hits himself and all this other stuff. And the interactive nature of video games intensifies this effect, as players are not passive-aggressive, but active participants in violent scenarios. This engagement fosters aggressive patterns, making individuals more prone to hostile reactions in real-world situations. The normalization of violence within gaming environments further worsens the issue, conducting players to perceive aggression as an acceptable or even entertaining response to challenges. The evidence is clear. Video games promote violence by desensitizing players, encouraging behavioral imitation, and fostering aggressive thoughts and emotions. As gaming technology continues to evolve, the psychological impact of video game content might be critically examined. While video games offer entertainment and escapism, their influence on behavior cannot be ignored. Society must take proactive steps to address this growing concern, encouraging that gaming remains a source of enjoyment rather than a catalyst of aggression. Like I said before, it's time to acknowledge that never-ending link between violent video games and behavioral challenges. This is not just an issue for entertainment, it's a growing concern with real-life consequences.
Gaming could enhance brain plasticity and executive functions, EFs, by fostering creativity. We identify vital benefits from further research exploring the relationship between games, brain plasticity, and creativity, the ongoing process in neuroscience. Research in these disciplines offers many possibilities and prospects for impactful therapy. Therefore, we emphasize the significance of investigating the untapped potentials of using games in creative therapy. Our perspectives on often overlooked neuroscientific aspect of creativity concerning health and well-being. One of these potentials is examining games as a therapeutic tool, focusing on their capacity to inspire and engaging the imagination and other mental operators shared with creativity. Using a game as a therapeutic approach may boost brain plasticity, which may help them reduce their cognitive impairments by improving their EFs. This review offers a comprehensive outline of the latest advancements in literature on games that tie to creativity through enhancing brain plasticity and EFs. Communicating this knowledge can furnish countless possibilities to improve our overall health and well-being and foster a positive perspective in individuals affected by anxiety. And in 2019, who received more than 900 studies on the impact of the arts on health and well-being, all demonstrate positive outcomes. Accordingly, it is imperative to call for direction toward effect creative therapy. Therefore, it is imperative to advocate for a greater use of creative therapy that considers the brain functions and process-based approaches according to Polner et al. 2015, Gusava 2019, and Khalil and Qimier 2023. The brain's extraordinary ability to adapt and change serves as an example of the promise of creative therapy in the arts. After thoroughly evaluating numerous theories on the contemplation of creativity, games, and brain plasticity, we briefly present our perspective. Now, you can hear what I mean by video games don't promote violence and actually show signs of creative mindsets or even gifted aspects of kids or even teens. The study comes out as debate continues among psychologists and others and other health professionals regarding the effect of violent media on youth. An APA task force is conducting a comprehensive review of research on violence in video games and interactive media, and I will release its findings in 2014. They stated, important research has already been conducted for decades on the negative effect of gaming, including addiction, depression, and aggression. And we are certainly not suggesting that this should be ignored, said lead author Isabella Granick, PhD of Radboud University in Nijmegen in the Netherlands. However, to understand the impact of video games on children and adolescents' development, a more balanced perspective is needed. The article will be published in APA's flagship journal, American Psychologist. While one widely held view maintains playing video games is intellectually lazy, such play actually may strengthen a range of cognitive skills such as spatial, navigation, reasoning, memory, and perception. According to several studies reviewed in the article, this is peculiarly true for shooter video games that are often violent. The author said a 2013 meta-analysis found that playing shooter video games improved the player's capacity to think about objects in 3 dimensions, just as well as academic courses to enhance these same skills. According to the study, this has critical implications for education and career development, as previous research has established the power of spatial skills for achievement in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Granite said this enhanced thinking was not found with playing other types of video games, such as puzzles or role-playing games. Playing video games may also help children develop problem-solving skills, the author said. The more adolescents reported playing strategic video games such as role-playing games, the more they improved in problem-solving and school grades the following year. According to a long-term study published in 2013, children's creativity was also enhanced by playing any kind of video game, including violent games. But not when the children used other forms of technology such as computer or cell phone. Other research revealed simple games that are easy to access and can be played quickly, such as Angry Birds, can improve players' moods, promote relaxation, and ward off anxiety. The study said if playing video games simply makes people happier, this seems to be fundamentally emotionally benefit to consider. Said Brandon, the authors also highlighted the possibility that video games are effective tools to learn resilience in the face of failure. By learning to cope with ongoing failures in video games, the author suggests that children build emotional resilience they can rely upon in their everyday lives, from APA.org. A report by Oxford Internet Institute and the University of Oxford, 2019, which is one of the most definitive to date, found no relationship between aggression behavior in teenagers and the amount of time spent playing violent video games. The idea that video games make people more violent has spread and grown around the world over the past 30 years. Regardless of the numerous studies that show the opposite, the proposition has been proven erroneous or non-relevant several times. Violence is caused by many other things like abuse, domestic violence, or access to weapons. Nearly 85% of teenagers use video games, so the fact that some people who commit violence acts also play video games should not be surprising, nor does it imply a casual relationship. The idea that violent video games drive real-world aggression is a popular one, but it hasn't tested very well over time. Lead research professor Andrew P. Bilisky, Director of Research at Oxford Internet Institute, said additionally a peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health found out that children play video games as a means of managing their emotions. 61.9% of boys play to help them relax, 47.8% video games because it helps them forget their problems, and 45.4% because it helps them get their anger out. While some research suggests that violent video games may desensitize players to violence, potentially hindering their empathy and pro-social behavior, other studies indicate that video games can foster empathy and pro-social behavior, particularly in social and cooperative contexts. The impact of video games on sensitivity to others is complex and depends on various factors, including the type of game, the player's individual characteristics, and their overall social environment.
Okay. So you can take his 2 minutes, Joshua, since you needed extra time. He has 2 minutes.
I found this on the web as to shooter games and stuff. We went over shooter games, and while shooter games can improve certain cognitive skills, the reaction time and the decision making, they may have a negative effect, such as an increased risk of violence and social skills. The effect depends on the individual and the type of shooter game it is. So you said something about 2019 had a rate of positive reviews about video games. But I have found that in 2019, video games were found problematic. Gaming was also associated with negative psychological incomes, like low self-esteem, poor school performance, and social isolation. And video games in therapy can lead to addiction, isolation, and social difficulties. So all of these points that I have proven wrong, it just leads to more of why video games do promote violence. Thank you. Okay. Video games shape behavioral behavior in profound ways, fostering a culture where aggression is normalized and accepted as an entertainment. Through repeated exposure, individuals become desensitized to violent content, losing their abilities to empathize with victims and diminish their emotional sensitivity to real-world harm. This desensitization has troubling implications as it only reduces compassion but also weakens the to intervene in violent situations. In addition to desensitization, the mechanics of these games encourage behavioral imitation, conducting players to view aggressive acts as effective responses to conflict. The reinforcement of violent violent behaviors within video games environments, making it more likely that players, particularly younger audiences, will internalize these tendencies and apply them to real life. Furthermore, video games do not more than simply depict aggression. They actively encourage players in violent scenarios, instilling hostile thoughts and emotions that can manifest in day-to-day interactions. Scientific research has repeatedly linked prolonged exposure to violent gaming content with heightened aggression, diminished impulse control, and reduced empathy, proving that these effects attend far beyond the virtual world. The dangers of violent video games cannot be ignored, as they reshape perceptions and ability and erode the psychological barriers that typically prevent aggression. With advancements in gaming technology making these experiences increasingly immersive, society must critically examine the long-term consequences of interactions with violent content. If left unaddressed, violent video games will continue to reinforce disruptive patterns, leading to greater societal acceptance of aggression. The question is no longer whether video games promote violence. It is how deeply they influence the minds of players in ways that they may not fully comprehend. To ensure that gaming remains a source of entertainment rather than a catalyst of aggression, we must take proactive steps to address this growing concern and challenge the normalization of violence before its impact becomes irreversible. All right. Have you ever heard of Jumanji? If not, I don't know how you haven't, because of The Rock and Kevin Hart is in it. But in Jumanji, they enter a board game and they have 3 lives to set, and a set of rules on how not to die. Those 3 lives, if they die in the game, they also die in real life. The movie, they don't think very carefully and they just waste their lives. And the real life at the end matters to them most. So a lot of video games, when you die, you reset or get another life, but in the real life, you only get 1. And video games show that that 1 life doesn't really matter. They can just repeat it. And it's time to acknowledge the never-ending link between video games, violent content, or just behavioral challenges in general. This is not just an issue of entertainment; it is a growing concern with real consequences.
As I stated before, video games do not promote violence. They promote alternative inclusion, the advancements on perception and eye coordination. But also people who play violent video games have to know the difference between virtual violence in the context of a game and appropriate behavior in real life. Violent video games provide opportunities for children to explore the consequences of violent actions and to develop their moral compasses virtually. They also allow people to release their stress and anger in the game, which leads to less real-world aggression. Video games can help many people feel comfortable and happy rather than worsen their violent character. The debate over whether video games can create violent tendencies in people has emerged again due to the massive shootings in recent years in the United States. According to the University of Villanova, in the first 7 months of 2019, there have been 22 shootings at schools in which someone has been injured or killed. In many instances, violent video games are attributed as the root cause, even though research and analysis prove otherwise. The university also stated that a report by the U.S. Secret Service and U.S. Department of Education examined incidents of targeted school violence between 1974 and the year 2000. Of the 41 attackers studied, none were found to have a relationship between playing violent video games and the school shootings. Video games made them do it is what parents around the world have put to blame as a cause of school shootings, while they should be worried about mental health problems, abuse, bullying, revenge, and other situations. There have been dozens of studies that have found no correlation between playing video games and aggressive behavior in teenagers. Focusing on violent video games as the cause of mass shootings distracts government officials from the need to deal with more fundamental causes. Even though children can play violent video games, it does not mean they are more likely to cause a school shooting due to no correlation found between violent actions and video games. Violence has always existed, but now it's been being blamed on video games. That doesn't seem right.